House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 8 is the season finale. Rhaenyra faces Alicent, Daemon has crazy visions, Rhaena finds a dragon, and Tyland wrestles a pirate. So what happens and what does it mean? This video has no spoilers for future episodes. The title of the episode is The Queen Who Ever Was, because Corlys renames his ship after his dead wife Rhaenys. Rhaenys was called the Queen Who Never Was, because she almost became queen. But the Queen Who Ever Was might also refer to the queens in Daemon's visions. Queen Rhaenyra, Queen Helaena, and Queen Daenerys are connected across time, across forever, through prophecy and destiny. The opening tapestry now shows Rhaenyra's 7 dragons. This black structure is her castle on Dragonstone, though the black also looks like dragon blood and death in the future. Rhaenyra and the Blacks are at war with Aegon and the Greens, led by Aemond. At Harrenhal, Rhaenyra's husband Daemon gathers an army of Riverlords, including House Tully, Blackwood, Bracken, Piper, Vance, Mooten, Darry, Mallister, and Strong. House Frey has not arrived yet, which is on brand.
The late Lord Frey, my father calls him.
Alfred Broom arrives. Rhaenyra sent Alfred to find out if Daemon is going to help Rhaenyra or is plotting to betray her. But Alfred doesn't believe in Rhaenyra's leadership. He wants a strong male leader, so Alfred tells Daemon to take power for himself. Daemon has been tempted to take his wife's crown. While Alfred and Daemon talk treason, a voice from a weirwood tree says traitor. In the books, there are voices from the weirwoods sometimes, because weirwoods are connected to the magic of the old gods, which Bran and Bloodraven use. In the books, Bran speaks to Ned and to Theon through the trees. He can even speak back in time. So it's possible that this voice saying traitor is Bran or Bloodraven from the future. Or maybe it's Alice or Helaena telling Daemon to not betray Rhaenyra. Later, Daemon finds Alice crying. Alice has magic knowledge of the future, so is she crying about the past or crying for things that haven't happened yet? In the books, there's another old gods witch called the Ghost of Highheart, who also cries for losses of the past and future. Knowledge is a painful burden. By the weirwood, we see a human-like figure with antlers and hooves. This is probably a green man. In the books, the green men are mysterious entities who guard the Isle of Faces, which is right near Harrenhal. The green men are a sacred order founded thousands of years ago, back when the humans made peace with the children of the forest. Some fans theorize that the green men are half human, half child of the forest. They supposedly have green skin and antlers and ride on elks. These days, no one can visit the Green Men, because the Isle is protected by magic winds and ravens. But author George Martin has said that the Green Men will be important in later books. So it looks like the Green Men and the Old Gods are watching Daemon, maybe giving him his visions, leading him to his destiny. Maybe Alice is a Green Man in a magic disguise. Because Alice says that Daemon wanted to control the world, to choose his future with his strength. But Alice says that everyone is influenced by greater forces. She teaches Daemon humility, to expand his perspective beyond himself. So Daemon touches the weirwood and the tree runs red. Weirwood trees have red sap, which looks like blood. Because the spirits of the dead are in the trees. The trees are fed on blood sacrifice. Daemon killed Willem Blackwood at this tree, so maybe Willem's blood gave the tree power. So Daemon has crazy visions. He sees this guy, Bloodraven, aka Brynden Rivers, the three-eyed crow, or the three-eyed raven. In Game of Thrones, Bloodraven is played by Max von Sydow, and he teaches Bran magic. In this vision, Bloodraven has a red birthmark on his face. Like in the books, the birthmark is shaped like a raven, and that's why he's called Bloodraven. In the books, Bloodraven has a long, complex history. He's born about 40 years after Hot D. He's the bastard son of a Targaryen king and a Blackwood woman, so Bloodraven is related to Daemon Targaryen and to Willem Blackwood. Bloodraven is a warrior, a sorcerer, a politician, and a lover. He's a dreamer, a liar, and a trickster. He rules as Hand of the King, fights battles against his half-brother, he joins the Night's Watch, he becomes an ancient magic tree, and he influences Bran and Jon Snow for his mysterious plans. Check out our video about Bloodraven. But Bloodraven is deeply connected to Targaryen dreams and prophecies across the centuries, so it makes sense that Daemon sees Bloodraven in a vision. Melisandre also has a vision of Bloodraven in the books, and Bloodraven should also appear in the upcoming spin-off show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Daemon sees from the perspective of an animal running across the snow, like when Bran wargs his wolf in Game of Thrones. And we see a White Walker with some zombies, because 170 years from now, White Walkers will attack humanity. Aegon the Conqueror dreamed that to stop the White Walkers, Targaryens must unite the realm, and Viserys chose Rhaenyra to uphold that duty. We see dead dragons, which could mean that more dragons will die in this war. But in dreams, dragons can also symbolize Targaryens, so this could represent dead Targaryens, or the downfall of House Targaryen. We see Daemon on a battlefield, then Daemon drowns in black water. The director Geeta Patel says the black water is like dragon blood. Previously, Alice said that Daemon will die at Harrenhal, and Harrenhal is next to the God's Eye Lake, so maybe that's where he's drowning. Also, Helaena says that Aemond will be swallowed up in the God's Eye Lake, so Aemond and Daemon's fates seem connected. We see the Red Comet. The comet appears in Game of Thrones Season 2 and in the books. It's an omen of magic and doom. The comet is part of the prophecy of Azor Ahai, or the prince that was promised. It's said that when the red star bleeds, Azor Ahai will save the world with a burning sword. This might mean that Daenerys will save the world with her fiery dragons. So Daemon sees Daenerys hatching her dragon eggs like in Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones show never gives a clear answer to the prophecy, but in the books, it looks like Daenerys and Jon Snow might be involved. Check out our Real Jon Snow video. The point is that Daemon sees his part in the mystical Song of Ice and Fire, and Daemon's destiny is not to rule. Daemon sees Rhaenyra on the throne, convincing him that she must be queen, and that is how the Targaryens will save the world. Or so Daemon thinks. In this world, dreams and prophecies are often misinterpreted. Like, Daemon and Rhaenyra might think that the White Walkers are gonna come soon, but we know that that won't happen for another 170 years, and it can be dangerous to see yourself as a messiah. Many Targaryens have done terrible things for dreams, power, and destiny. Helaena appears to Daemon, and she almost breaks the fourth wall, saying it's all a story, that their lives are but an episode streamed on HBO Max. She doesn't say that, but it's interesting that Helaena appears in Daemon's weirwood dream. Normally, it's just greenseers, like Bloodraven, who enter people's dreams. But magic is mysterious in this world. There's no magic system with hard rules. And showrunner Ryan Condal points out that in this world, dragons make magic stronger, and during Hot D, there are more dragons alive than ever, so it's plausible that unique magic could happen in this time. Point is, Daemon opens his mind and sees a destiny greater than himself. He lets go of his selfish desires and decides to help Rhaenyra take the throne. It took 6 episodes of magic, drugs, and therapy, but Daemon's finally learned to respect his wife. On Dragonstone, Ulf and Hugh used to be powerless, lowborn bastards, but now they are dragon riders on huge, ancient dragons, and Ulf doesn't take this seriously. Instead of going to dragon school to learn how to train his dragon, Ulf slacks off, and Ulf is rude to Rhaenyra's son, Prince Jace. Previously, Ulf said that he supported Jace. Ulf called Jace his nephew, because Ulf is Jace's half-great-uncle. Ulf points out Jace's dark hair, because Jace is secretly the bastard son of Harwin Strong. Ulf says that he and Jace are the same, like they're equal, because they are both dragon riders of questionable parentage. And this is what Jace is afraid of, because if bastards like Ulf and Hugh have dragons, how is Jace different to them? Jace's political position as Rhaenyra's heir to the throne could be questioned by these other bastard Targaryen dragon riders who have bigger dragons and have whiter hair than him. They look more legit than Jace does. This brings up all Jace's insecurities over his identity and bastardy, so Jace angrily threatens Ulf.
Jace learned this behaviour from Daemon. In Season 1, Daemon taught Jace to threaten their own men to assure their loyalty. Prince Jace doesn't have a good male role model. Baela Targaryen is Jace's fiancée, betrothed to marry him. She says that there's no point in Jace sulking and complaining, and that Jace shouldn't let his bastardy define him. One of the messages of the books is that our blood and our parents don't make us who we are. What matters is our choices and our actions. So yes, Ulf, Hugh, and Adam could be a political threat to Jace, but the best way for Jace to prove himself as the true crown prince is to act like it. On Driftmark, Rhaenyra worries about her dragon riders. Corlys says that Adam is a decent man, though Corlys doesn't mention that Adam is his bastard son. He's ashamed that he's been a bad father. Rhaenyra hopes that her new dragons will convince Aemond and the Greens to surrender, but Corlys says they should attack the Greens now. Because yes, Rhaenyra has more dragons, but the Greens do have Daeron Targaryen and his young dragon Tessarion coming up from Oldtown, and Helaena has a dragon named Dreamfire. Dreamfire is one of the oldest dragons alive. She's smaller than Vhagar and Vermithor, but is probably bigger than Caraxes and Syrax. Rhaenyra says Helaena isn't a warrior, and she doesn't ride Dreamfire, so maybe Dreamfire won't join the war. The books mention that Helaena does ride Dreamfire. She loves Dreamfire. So it's unclear if Helaena and Dreamfire will join the war, but the Greens could get stronger. So Corlys tells Rhaenyra to strike while she has the advantage. Corlys's ship, the Sea Snake, has been repaired. The Sea Snake is famous. In this ship, Corlys explored the world in his 9 voyages. The Sea Snake is Corlys's pride and glory, but now he renames the ship to the Queen Who Never Was, the nickname of Corlys's wife, Rhaenys. It's kinda ironic to name the ship after Rhaenys, because Rhaenys didn't want Corlys to do wars and voyages, yet now he sails to war in her name. But the point is that Corlys had been selfish, so now he honours Rhaenys instead. In the books, there's conflict between Rhaenyra and Corlys. Corlys blames Rhaenyra for the death of Rhaenys, and Jace heals the rift by making Corlys hand, but that's not included in Hot D. Later, Corlys sees his bastard son, Alyn. They talk awkwardly about the weather, classic dad behaviour, and Corlys complains that Alyn is distant and cold. Corlys says he's trying to help Alyn. So Alyn finally tells his dad how he feels. Alyn and Adam grew up alone, abandoned and ignored by Corlys. They struggled for food and warmth, while Corlys raised his true-born children, Laenor and Laena, in luxury. It's only now that Laenor and Laena are gone that Corlys pays any attention to Alyn. But Alyn has not forgotten those years of neglect. Alyn hardened his heart, learned to live alone, so he rejects his father. How will Corlys handle this guilt and shame, and what does this mean for his legacy? Rhaenys told Corlys that Alyn deserves honour and recognition. Baela said that the heir to Driftmark should be of salt and sea. Rhaena wanders the Vale until she finds a dragon. This is probably the dragon Sheepstealer, described in the books as an ugly, skinny, mud-brown dragon. He's never had a rider. He's said to be vicious and ill-tempered. He's around 80 years old in the books, so he should be one of the bigger, stronger dragons. Rhaena is a Targaryen, with the blood of the dragon from her father Daemon, so she should be able to claim a dragon. Though previously, Rhaena failed to claim the dragon Seasmoke, so will she claim Sheepstealer and become a dragon rider? This plotline is a change from the books. Rhaena was meant to go to Pentos to protect Rhaenyra's children, Aegon and Viserys, but Rhaena abandoned that duty. Will Rhaenyra be angry? Rhaenyra has dinner with her dragon riders. Ulf is rude and eats like a zillion quail.
It was over 30 quails.
It's a culture clash between the lower-class Ulf and the fancy, highborn royals. Rhaenyra tells Ulf, Hugh, and Adam to use their dragons responsibly and to serve her loyally, and then she will make them knights. This would be a big improvement of the social status of these bastards. But previously, Hugh thought that he'd be rewarded with money, and that his wife Cat would become a lady. So what exactly will the Dragon Riders get in return for their service? All season, Rhaenyra's been reluctant to attack because she doesn't want to kill innocent people. But Corlys convinced her she must strike. So now Rhaenyra says that with their dragons, they will attack Lannisport and Oldtown. Lannisport is the town around Castle Rock, ruled by the Lannisters, and Oldtown is the city of House Hightower. The Lannisters and Hightowers are the Greens' main allies, so if they're defeated, Rhaenyra hopes that the Greens will surrender. But Baelor and Hugh point out that Lannisport and Oldtown are full of civilians. Many innocent people could die. And the Lannister and Hightower lords and their armies aren't in those cities. They're on the march. So what exactly is Rhaenyra's target? If Rhaenyra is willing to attack a city, why not just attack King's Landing and take the throne, and face the real threat, Vhagar? Attacking Lannisport and Oldtown is a very weird plan. But Rhaenyra gets a message from Simon Strong, because Simon saw Alfred plotting with Daemon. So Rhaenyra takes Adam and their dragons to Harrenhal to face her husband. Rhaenyra and Daemon haven't spoken since their big argument in episode 2, when Daemon refused to acknowledge Rhaenyra as his queen. Now they meet in Harrenhal's Great Hall, and this is where Viserys was chosen to be king instead of Rhaenys. It set a precedent that only men would rule Westeros, not women, so it's a symbolic place for Queen Rhaenyra to face Daemon. But Daemon doesn't betray Rhaenyra. Daemon says winter is coming. In his visions, he saw the White Walkers, saw that the Targaryens must unite, so Daemon finally accepts that Viserys chose Rhaenyra as the rightful ruler. Rhaenyra doesn't embrace Daemon. She hasn't forgotten his crimes and defiance, but Daemon rallies the Rivermen for Rhaenyra. This is a big army at the center of Westeros, which could be crucial for this war. The Blacks are also allied with the Arryns in the Vale and the Starks in the north and the Velaryons on Driftmark, while Aegon and Aemond and the Greens are allied with the Lannisters in the west, the Hightowers in Oldtown, and the Baratheons in the Stormlands. And Aemond told Tyland to go make an alliance with the Triarchy. The Triarchy is a group of 3 eastern cities, Tyrosh, Myr, and Lys. In Season 1, the Triarchy took over the Stepstones Islands, so Daemon and Corlys defeated the Triarchy and killed their leader, the Crab Feeder. Then the Triarchy rose again, so Corlys defeated them again, off-screen. Now, Tyland meets with the Triarchy near Tyrosh. Tyrosh is a port city that trades in dyes, so Tyroshi people wear colourful clothes, and dye their hair and their beards green and blue. In the books, Daenerys' lover Daario is a flamboyant Tyroshi with a colourful beard. Tyland wants the Triarchy to attack Corlys Velaryon's ships, which are blockading King's Landing and stopping food coming in. But the Triarchy are difficult to convince. In the books, the Triarchy are led by a council of 33 magisters, 11 from each city, and they constantly argue about every decision, so it takes forever for them to do anything. The Triarchy demand gold from Tyland Lannister, because the Lannisters are famously rich from their gold mines. But Lannister wealth is sometimes exaggerated, and the Triarchy ask for way too much gold. So instead, Tyland agrees to give the Stepstones Islands to the Triarchy, even though Tyland and the Greens don't have the Stepstones. Daemon briefly claimed the Stepstones, and Corlys fortified the Stepstones, but the Stepstones were never actually part of Westeros. So the Greens are cleverly giving the Triarchy something that they never had. It costs them nothing. But Alicent warned Aemond not to trust the Triarchy. Like, what if the Triarchy uses the Stepstones to disrupt trade and take slaves again? To seal the alliance, Tyland has to convince the Triarchy commander, Sharako Lohar. Sharako is a woman, but her men call her him and he, because Sharako doesn't act like a woman is expected to in this world. Sharako fights and leads and marries women, so her men see her as some kind of guy. It's like how Rhaenyra and Alicent struggle with gender roles. Sharako tests Tyland to see what kind of man he is. She asks if Tyland is a philosopher, and Sharako's actor, Abigail Thorne, has a YouTube channel called PhilosophyTube, which is a coincidence. The line was written before Abigail was cast. Sharako messes with Tyland. She mud wrestles him and asks him to have sex with her wives. This is based on a later part of the book with the character Ricalio Rindoon. Tyland is nervous and stiff with the Triarchy, but Sharako pushes Tyland until Tyland lashes out. She uncovers the strength in this timid Lannister lion. At dinner, Tyland sings a horny sea shanty, and Sharako agrees to the alliance. The Triarchy will attack the Velaryons at the Gullet. Sharako says that Corlys, the sea snake, will rue the day they meet again. So it sounds like Sharako and Corlys have clashed before. Maybe they fought in those previous battles for the Stepstones. Maybe Sharako faced Daemon and Dragonfire. It sounds like Sharako wants revenge. Rhaenyra on Dragonstone and the Velaryon Island Driftmark are in the Gullet near the Velaryon fleet, so Sharako and the Triarchy are a new threat to Rhaenyra and to her closest allies. Criston Cole and Gwayne Hightower serve Aemond and the Greens. They're marching with an army to the Riverlands to fight Daemon. But Gwayne finds out that Criston's been having sex with his sister, Alicent, and that is a big no-no, because Alicent is the Queen Mother, and she's unmarried. Criston is a Kingsguard, sworn to chastity, so this is a scandal and a dishonor to the family. Criston admits that he broke his oath and that haunts him, but he says that Alicent saved him twice, because Alicent kept the secret that Criston broke his oath with Rhaenyra, and Alicent saved Criston from killing himself, and Alicent may have protected Criston from being punished for murdering Joffrey Lonmouth. Criston owes Alicent his life. She is his guiding light, his beacon, like the Hightower beacon fire, and like Alicent's green dress. Without Alicent, Criston is lost. But Criston feels powerless, because his identity and his strength was in being a knight. But at Rook's Rest, he saw that knights are nothing in the face of Dragonflame. Now he's marching to war again, and he expects that he'll be killed by dragons. After all Criston's trauma and his crimes, he welcomes death. In the beginning, Criston just wanted to prove himself as a knight, but like Jaime Lannister, Criston's torn apart by knightly oaths, by the rules and contradictions of his society. Criston is now scarily cold and detached, as though he's already dead, a ghost in white, marching to oblivion. In King's Landing, Larys Strong tells King Aegon that they've got to leave the city, because Aegon's brother Aemond might kill Aegon to take the throne, and even if they can stop Aemond, Rhaenyra could attack with her 7 dragons. Aegon can't win, so Larys says they'll run away to Braavos in the east. Braavos is where Arya joins the Faceless Men in Game of Thrones. So this is why Larys pushed Aegon to walk again. He needs his strength to travel east. Larys says that he took most of the gold from Harrenhal and put it in Braavos's Iron Bank. This is why Larys's grunkle Simon can't afford to repair Harrenhal's roof. Aegon doesn't see the point in living. He says his dragon Sunfire is dead. His body is crippled. Aegon's penis was destroyed when he was burned. Previously, Aegon called himself the Dragon Cock, but now he doesn't have a dragon or a cock. Aegon's penis is the whole reason why he became king. The Greens argued that Westeros must be ruled by the male Aegon, not the female Rhaenyra. But now that Aegon's son, Jaehaerys, is dead, and Aegon doesn't have a penis, he can't father a male heir. His heir is either his brother Aemond, who burned him, or his daughter, Jaehaera, and a female heir would be hilariously hypocritical. It's irony upon irony. Aegon says he's crippled, disgusting, and alone. But Larys says that Aegon is not alone. Larys is also seen as a cripple, excluded and shamed, so he sympathizes with Aegon, almost like a father. Larys says they'll wait in Braavos while Aemond and Rhaenyra destroy each other, then Aegon can return to Westeros and be welcomed as the rightful king. It's like Illyrio's plan for Viserys at the start of Game of Thrones. In Season 1, Aegon loved being adored by the common people, so now he hopes to become the Realm's Delight. Previously, Rhaenyra was called the Realm's Delight. In the books, young Rhaenyra was popular, adored by all, so now Aegon hopes to become a popular king. He and Larys sneak out of King's Landing and head for Braavos. Last episode, Aemond saw that Rhaenyra has 3 new dragon riders. Aemond used to feel unstoppable on his dragon Vhagar, but now he's vulnerable. Rhaenyra's 7 dragons together probably could kill Vhagar, so Aemond is so angry and afraid that he lashes out with an atrocity. Aemond burns the town of Sharp Point, killing or displacing thousands of innocent people. Sharp Point is right near Driftmark and Dragonstone. In the books, Sharp Point is ruled by House Bar-Emmon, which is allied with Rhaenyra, though behind the scenes the showrunner says that Sharp Point is the seat of House Massey. Lord Gorman Massey is on Rhaenyra's council, and his daughter Alinda Massey is Rhaenyra's handmaid, who's been helping her in King's Landing. So this is a brutal attack on Rhaenyra's allies. The dragon Vhagar has a long history of killing civilians. 100 years ago, Vhagar was ridden by Visenya Targaryen, and in Dawn, Visenya and Vhagar burned many towns full of civilians, over and over. Some fans theorize that Vhagar's history of atrocities influences Aemond, that their magic bond leads Aemond to more terrible violence. Aemond finds out that last episode, dozens of dragon seeds left King's Landing on boats. It's an embarrassing failure of his security and intel. Seems like his government doesn't work very well now that Aemond removed half the council, and now that Larys is working against Aemond. Aemond orders that all fishing boats will be searched from now on, even though that'll make it harder for the people to get food. And there have already been food riots. This could make things worse. The government is a mess, and Aemond is isolated.
Helaena tells her mother Alicent that being queen sucks. Helaena never wanted to be queen, or to marry her brother Aegon, but Alicent pushed her into it, just like Otto pushed Alicent to be queen. Helaena is so innocent, but now she's trapped in a war. Her son Jaehaerys was murdered. Alicent feels that it's her fault, and that this is probably all for nothing, because after all her efforts, Alicent has no power. Aemond is a monster. Aegon is burned. Viserys didn't want Aegon to be king, and it looks like Rhaenyra will win anyway. So now Alicent only hopes to escape with Helaena and Helena's daughter Jaehaera, so that they can be free together, someplace far away. But Aemond wants Helaena to join the war on her dragon Dreamfire. Helaena doesn't want to fight, but Aemond says they must win or die. Alicent put Aemond in a tough position too. But Alicent blames Aemond for burning Sharp Point. He killed thousands of people out of anger and fear. She says it's not worth winning the war if they're corrupted by evil. Alicent is done with Aemond, done with politics, but she still has some hope for Rhaenyra. So Alicent arranges a meeting with Rhaenyra. She asks Grandmaster Orwyle to help her sneak onto Dragonstone. Aemond would see this as treason, but Orwyle bravely helps anyway. For most of the series, Orwyle stayed neutral. Orwyle saw Lyman murdered for defying the Greens, so Orwyle kept his head down. But in this episode, Aegon calls Orwyle a good man, so Orwyle now takes action and gets Alicent onto Dragonstone. Somehow. Aemond just ordered new security, and there's still the Velaryon blockade, so it's hard to imagine how Queen Alicent snuck onto Dragonstone. But later, Aemond comes to Helaena, and this time he's more gentle and vulnerable. He asks Helaena to help him win the war. But again, Helaena refuses. Helaena says she knows that Aemond burned Aegon, and she reveals more of her magic visions. She says that Aegon will be king again. She says he sits on a wooden throne, which might refer to this wooden carriage he's sitting in, or a wheelchair could be a wooden throne. We also see Bloodraven on a wooden throne of weirwood. Helaena also says that Aemond will die, that he'll be swallowed up in the God's Eye Lake near Harrenhal, like that vision of Daemon drowning. So Helaena seems to have new control and understanding of her magic visions, and Aemond is the first person to really listen to her prophecies. Aemond and Helaena are the weirdos of the family, the outsiders. They seemed connected, but Helaena hates Aemond's violence, and they seem to have separate destinies. How will Aemond react to this prophecy of his death? On Dragonstone, Rhaenyra worries that innocent people will die for her war. Last episode, she saw many dragon seeds burn, and if she burns Oldtown and Lannisport, many, many more people will die. But Mysaria says that Rhaenyra must win, no matter the cost. Previously, Mysaria wanted to protect the common people, but lately she's been using the common people for Rhaenyra, by starting that riot and by using the dragon seeds. Is Mysaria compromising her values? And how will Mysaria feel if Daemon returns, since Mysaria has been intimate with both Daemon and Rhaenyra? Alicent sneaks onto Dragonstone and meets with Rhaenyra. Alicent and Rhaenyra had once been best friends, but they were torn apart by politics. Alicent always resented that Rhaenyra broke the rules and had fun, while Alicent just did her duty. Rhaenyra had forbidden sex and lied about it. Rhaenyra's son Luke cut the eye from Alicent's son Aemond. Then Alicent's family stole Rhaenyra's throne and killed Luke. Then Rhaenyra's husband Daemon had Alicent's grandson Jaehaerys killed. There's been murder and horror on both sides. Alicent used to believe in her duty to be queen, that she would guide the realm to peace. But that has all failed. Alicent has no power. She's been rejected by her own family and by her allies. She has no purpose or identity anymore. So now she finally rejects duty and just wants to leave and be free with Helaena and Jaehaerys. Alicent even asks Rhaenyra to come with her. It's like when Criston asked Rhaenyra to leave with him in Season 1. Rhaenyra has always wanted to run away. In Season 1, Episode 1, she said that she wanted to fly east with Alicent. They could leave together. But Viserys chose Rhaenyra to be queen, to uphold Aegon's dream to save the world. So the rebellious Rhaenyra stays to do her duty, while the dutiful Alicent leaves to be free. It's a reversal of their roles from Season 1. Rhaenyra and Alicent have changed places. Previously, Rhaenyra came to Alicent and asked for peace, and Alicent said it was too late. But now, it's Alicent asking for peace. She offers to help Rhaenyra take King's Landing. Once Aemond flies to war, Alicent will get Queen Helaena to make King's Landing surrender to Rhaenyra. That way, Rhaenyra can take the city and the throne without violence. King's Landing would probably surrender to Rhaenyra anyway, because she has 7 dragon riders, but this could help save some lives. But Rhaenyra says that to secure her throne, she'll need to kill Alicent's son, King Aegon. She says that Alicent must sacrifice her son, just as Rhaenyra lost her son, Luke. Tearfully, Alicent accepts that her son Aegon must die. Alicent rejected Aegon long ago. When Aegon raped Diana, Alicent said that Aegon is no son of hers. Aegon disgusts Alicent, but he's still her son. She feels guilty about him, like that Aegon's evil might be partly her fault. And Aegon wouldn't have had to die if Alicent's family hadn't made him king. Rhaenyra forces Alicent to confront her guilt, that she was complicit in this war and all its atrocities. Rhaenyra and Alicent remember the love they had as friends. Part of them wants to be together. That's why they're having this conversation. But there's too much pain between them, too much politics that they inherited from their fathers, Viserys and Otto. Viserys made Rhaenyra heir out of love and guilt for his wife Aemma. Otto made Alicent queen out of his family ambition and out of his feelings for his wife. This show explores how we are shaped by our families and by the politics and the conflicts that came before. We are a tapestry woven from the blood of generations past. We see Rhaenyra standing under the weight of the past, of those Valyrian scrolls, representing her duty and responsibility as queen, while Alicent stands under an open sky, finally tasting freedom after a lifetime of suffocating responsibility. The plan is that in 3 days, Rhaenyra will come to King's Landing, and Alicent and Helaena will surrender. Though Aegon has escaped, so maybe Rhaenyra will think that Alicent betrayed her. The season ends with a montage across Westeros. In the south, the Hightower army marches to help the Greens. With them is Daeron Targaryen, Alicent's son, who we haven't seen yet. Daeron is riding his young dragon Tessarion, the Blue Queen. The Lannister army marches under Lord Jason Lannister. They've almost reached Harrenhal. And somewhere, in a cage, is Otto Hightower, Alicent's father. Last we heard, Otto was meant to be in Highgarden, so maybe Otto was captured by one of the rebel Reach houses, like House Beesbury. For Team Black, Rhaenyra's dragon riders Hugh, Adam, and Ulf suit up for war. At Harrenhal, Daemon has his army of rivermen. He plans to march to King's Landing before the Lannisters arrive. And the Stark army marches south to help Rhaenyra. They cross the Freys Bridge at the Twins, thanks to Jace's diplomacy. There should also be an army coming from the Vale, if Jane Arryn keeps her promise. We also see Corlys and Alyn join the Velaryon fleet blockading the Gullet. Corlys says he's ready to fight the Lannister or Greyjoy fleets, though Corlys is not expecting an attack from the Triarchy led by Sharako. Everyone's heading for war, setting up an explosive climax for next season. Originally, Season 2 was going to have 10 episodes, with a climactic battle at the end of the season. But the season was changed to 8 episodes, and the climax was moved to next season. Writer Sarah Hess said this change was not really their choice. Some reports say the change was due to budget cuts by the parent company Warner Bros. Discovery. This season was also affected by strikes, which prevented them from changing the script during filming. Showrunner Ryan Condal said Season 1 was disrupted by COVID, Season 2 disrupted by strikes, so he hopes that next season will not be impacted by any major global events. Hot D Season 3 is now being written, and the show will end with Season 4. Next year, there's a new Game of Thrones spin-off show starting called A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It's based on the Duncan Egg books. We've got videos about all of those stories. My bastard half-grunkle, AltSwiftX, made 68 hours of exclusive Hot D videos with Glidus, and there's more coming, including an extra-long Episode 8 discussion. You can watch the full version of all of these videos at nebula.tv/AltSwiftX. You can also listen to them as audio on podcast apps using the Nebula RSS feed. Nebula is an independent video site owned by creators, where we can make ambitious projects without worrying about demonetization or the algorithm. Nebula has exclusive originals from AltSwiftX and Glidus, and from Abigail Thorne, who plays Sharako Loha. Abigail's award-winning play, The Prince, is on Nebula, and her new movie, Dracula's Ex-Girlfriend, comes to Nebula on September 9th. Sign up to Nebula at nebula.tv/AltSwiftX, and you can get 40% off an annual plan. It's a great way to support AltShiftX. Thanks for watching. Shout out to Glidus for doing most of the video editing this season. And thanks to the patrons, including Zach, Krista, Heyoyo, Anatoxme, Adakan Yusul, Sauerkraut, and Peachiest. Cheers.